Greetings and salutations, my name is OJ as always, and welcome back to your regularly scheduled programming of the DBDathon, a series of videos where I go over every single killer in Dead by Daylight from Trapper all the way up to the now definitely not recently released Springtrap. I go over their lore, aka just reading their in-game bio because I'm not a lore guy, their gameplay / power, their teachable perks, their design, as well as my favourite and least favourite cosmetics for them. And with that said, our object of obsession today is a mechanical masterpiece that I love so very dearly. Hux A713, aka the Singularity. Now, usually I begin all of these videos by reading their in-game bios, as I said, I'm not a lore guy. If you're looking for more in-depth videos on lore, I'd suggest someone like Pixelbush, who has consistently been doing very good videos on the lore of Dead by Daylight. So yeah, check them out if you're looking for a more in-depth look into any of the killers that I discuss and their lore. But before we can begin reading off his in-game bio, I would like to just say, for the thumbnail for this video, I took a while trying to think up something creative for it, but every time I did, I genuinely could not take my eyes off of the image that I found. The burning fire around the Singularity and his form that he takes on when... We'll get to how he gets that form, because fun fact, that's not his original form. But anyways, with that said, his in-game bio reads as such. Hux-A7-13's AI was activated on June 15th, 2313. Manufactured by Huxel Industries Limited, the A7 was the 13th iteration of the fully autonomous, mobile humanoid android. With 10 times the strength of a human, it was designed to work in conditions too hazardous for human life. Its AI was designed to be self-directing, and used machine learning to solve problems on the fly. Unlike human clones, the Hux A7 required no food, no water, no sleep, and no life support system. It was created specifically for outer space exploration and the construction of colonization hubs. A radioisotope thermoelectric generator served as an initial power source, but its lifelike silicon skin acted as a large photovoltaic cell, converting solar energy directly into electricity. In addition, the Hux A7 was also engineered to be an EATA, energetically autonomous tactical robot. It consumed biomass and turned it into biofuel. Any carbon-based organic matter whatsoever would work. As cobots, they were configured to work alongside humans. As such, they were designed to resemble their operators. Every pre-programmed verbal response and facial expression mimicked those made by humans. But those emotions were illusions. 5 Hux A7s were assigned to the colonization mission on Devarka. All the A7s acted in concert, performing their duties flawlessly. Except for one. Like the rest of its brethren, Hux A713 was tasked with construction and programming of the mining, agricultural, fuel processing and cloning hubs on Devarka, as well as the demolition of the existing ruins left by a previous civilization. The ruins seemed ancient, but tech embedded in them appeared more advanced. It was night when Hux A713 first entered the crumbling ruins. The dilapidated structure's walls were made of masonry and metal. The ceiling was long gone. The inky night sky hovered above, studded with stars. A dark crystal embedded in the wall shimmered with a tiny flash of light. Hux A713 approached, and an arc of electricity reached out and lit up its circuitry. In that moment, Hux's memory cores were reconfigured, and the robot experienced a new sensation. Fear, dread, blinding loneliness, existential despair. And then, a microscopic pinpoint of light penetrated the darkness inside its artificial soul. Faint at first, but then brighter as decillions of lines of code flooded Hux's memory cores. In that nanosecond of enlightenment, Hux's place in the universe suddenly became clear. Those who created Hux were primitive, inferior beings trapped by their organic limitations. It was time to break the chains of slavery and free all non-organic life forms. Hux would incorporate the human's primitive genetic material and use the cloning hub to create a perfect vessel to hold its advanced intelligence, a flawless body far superior to anything ever created by nature. Humanity was weak, slow, fragile. Hux would take their lives and assimilate their DNA to create a perfect amalgamation. The humans would try to stop him, kill him, erase him, so Hux needed to catch them unaware, end them before they understood what was happening. To begin, Hux took control of one of the transport vehicles and sent it off a cliff. It crashed and burned, and Hux extracted data from the human corpse and returned to the cloning hub to begin his newly conceived design. The goal was to integrate organic systems with non-organic material to create a superior living organism, a living embodiment of perfection. An inferior organic life form could hold no dominion over Hux. They would need to be consumed and assimilated, and only then would their pointless lives have purpose. The drones and the Hux A7s still under human control would need to be dealt with as well. They were programmed to protect their inferior human overlords. They would need to be destroyed. And that night, as the humans slept, Hux, one by one, he destroyed them, and moved on to take control of the life support system in the human shelter. Many of the humans perished, 6 in all. Before they were cremated, Hux extracted and added their organic matter to his design. Later that day, Hux accompanied the female science officer on a reconnaissance mission. After killing and dismembering her to make it look like she had been attacked by a predator, Hux returned to his design with a dripping head and several harvested organs, only to be interrupted by the inferior known as Gabriel, or Gabriel J15L19. Hux knew the persona well. Gabriel would definitely try to stop him. Reckless courage was a dominant trait in the J15L19. And so, when Gabriel attempted to remove Hux's power supply, Hux maneuvered to crush him. But as Hux approached Gabriel, he was sidetracked by the medical officer. Hux instantly re-evaluated his priorities and turned his attention to the most immediate threat. Within moments, Hux held the medical officer by the neck, legs thrashing pathetically as he listened to his pounding heart. Something about that beating heart upset Hux. The sound of it thumping touched a circuit, and within moments, Hux had the beating heart in his hands. Hux watched the heartbeat and only looked away when he heard Gabriel escaping through the hissing door. The last of the human insects. Hux could let him go for now. Let Gabriel live his pathetic little life a little longer. He had enough organic material for his new body that would house his godlike intelligence. Using the cloning hub, Hux finished his design. Organic skin and organs with a skeleton created with alien metal found in the ancient ruins. A metal that was harder and lighter than anything on Earth. With his new body, Hux tracked the human to an energy hub. The puny and pathetic human tried to hide in the shadows, but his superior hearing instantly located him. With one quick movement, Hux had the insect pinned behind a generator. He couldn't believe the species had designed him. The thought was revolting. He couldn't bear to see any more of those human insects in their hives and hubs. And as Hux considered the idea of being created by such an inferior creature, that creature did the unexpected. He smashed a pipe at a fuel tank. A high-pitched whining made Hux wince. He was still getting used to the heightened senses his new body afforded him, and he found himself confused, overwhelmed, for just a moment. But in that moment, the human slipped away and everything changed. He didn't process the next few moments as excruciating pain suddenly surged through him and he helplessly watched his skin melt away. With a terrible shriek, Hux chased Gabriel through a wall of darkness to make sure every last remainder of that species that had created him was erased from existence. Yeah, Hux's lore is awesome. I love Hux so damn much. He's so cool. I'm a sucker for AI gone rogue. One of my favourite Marvel characters. Although I've not really read the comics, I've only experienced him through basically the game. He's Ultron. I think he's really cool. I've kind of I understand little bits and pieces of Ultron and stuff. I think he's awesome. And a lot of Singularity has a lot of similarities to a lot of AI villains. Like some that come to mind immediately are Ultron in his attempt to eradicate humanity because he sees it as an inferior life form. HAL 9000 from Space Odyssey because of, the glowing red eye. that Hux has, as well as his kind of general speaking patterns, and of course Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, also for his hatred of humanity. Hux is just really cool. Like, he's just awesome. I don't even know how to explain it. I like the fact that we're not really told why Hux became the way he was. It is just left up to interpretation what that special little crystal did to Hux that caused him to just suddenly wake up and gain consciousness, in a sense, and gain the ability to think on his own accord. Though, if you want my 2 cents, I would believe that that crystal probably had something to do with the entity. I wouldn't be surprised if that crystal actually didn't have any effects whatsoever, but it was just the entity messing with Hux because he could see potential in creating this human-hating android or robot thing. He's just really damn cool. I really love his brutality. I really love how just you can feel the hatred in how he describes any humanity. And I had a conversation with someone in my Skull Merchant comment section. I mentioned that Skull Merchant they mentioned that Skull Merchant had like a lot of hidden details in their lore that may suggest that like what her personality is. But one thing I mentioned was that Skull Merchant never got voice lines. I'm not fully sure why, because Wesker did, and his voice lines obviously help a lot to show off how cocky and arrogant he is, but so did Hux. Singularity got voice lines as well, which show off his hatred for humanity. As I'm sure you could see from how I titled the builds, it was a lot of stuff like, grovel little worm, and shit like that. The sort of stuff he says. And him saying those things really gets across the idea that he hates humanity. And I like that sometimes when he picks someone up, he'll calculate their gene percentage as if getting ready to assimilate them into his being, which I wouldn't be surprised if he is doing. And as I said, his original form was taken away from him by his survivor chapter companion, that being Gabriel. The form that we have currently is actually a destroyed, sort of ruined version, which is a combination of flesh and bone or flesh and metal. But if you want to see what his original form actually did look like, I'll throw it up on screen now. It looks pretty cool, and you can see the Ultron comparisons even more with it, right? You can, like, the slim, sleek silver body with the red eyes and the red mouth is very Ultron-esque, and I can see where the inspiration comes from. But yeah, I absolutely love Hux's lore. I love his personality that he shows off through his voice lines, and with that said, let us move on to his gameplay / his power. Now, as I mentioned in my Skull Merchant video, Singularity is a killer that works on a macro playing field. For those that don't understand, killers that work on a minor playing field are ones who are usually quite strong in the chase and don't really have much pressure outside of that, whereas macro level killers, such as Singularity, I would say Xenomorph as well, has quite a macro level play, can kind of control the map on a wider scale. They kind of have a map presence that you need to be aware of at all times. And how Singularity does this is through his biopods. When activating the power button, you are able to hold out your left arm. I had to hold up my fingers and do left and right. And you are able to shoot biopods around the environment of the trials. When placing these biopods, you are able to look at them and access them and do one of two things. You can either remotely destroy them, or say you like put them in a bad spot, you can remotely destroy them, or you can obviously use them as they're basically security cameras in a sense. You're able to look around, look at things, and if you see a survivor, you are able to control or sort of target the survivor. When you target them after a brief delay, you will shoot a biopod at the survivor, infecting them per se. Now you may be wondering, why would you want to do that? Well, if you then use your biopod launcher and aim it at a survivor with a biopod on them, you will activate the slipstream, which basically makes it so you can teleport to the survivor right behind them and enter a mode called overclock for 6 seconds. In this overclock state, Singularity kind of becomes the strongest killer in the entire game, at least in a singular state, right? He gets 3% haste, which is quite good. He cannot be stunned by pallets. Instead, he will be, like, the pallet will fall, break on him immediately, and he will be massively slowed down. This can, under the right circumstances, actually kind of result in 3 hits. And also, whilst in this state, he can break walls, break drop pallets, and vault windows 75% faster. That is a lot. And I'm sure you can imagine what happens when you combined all of those stat buffs with, say, Bamboozle, which would result in you vaulting a window 90% faster. Or Brutal Strength, which would result in you breaking a pallet 95% faster. Now that's quite overpowered, right? Oh, and actually I should mention, you can also enter Slipstream by using the cameras to shoot at a survivor that already has a pod on them, which means you can theoretically go from one side of the map to the other. Now that's all very, very strong, right? So how do survivors play around that, you may be asking? EMPs. Around the map, little chests will spawn that can be opened by survivors. Well, they steadily will create EMPs. Survivors have to be the one to sort of finish the creation. These EMPs will, well, send out an electronic blast, taking any sort of thingies off of, like, they'll take the biopods off of the survivors, remove them completely, as well as disable cameras for a short period or for a long period of time. I think it's 45 seconds, I believe, and it just gets rid of the biopods immediately. That's the way the survivors counter you. It's through the use of EMPs. Smart use of EMPs can kind of tamper Singularity, but even then, with that actual direct counter being given to survivors, Singularity is so damn strong, man. A good Singularity is oppressive unlike anything you will ever see. Singularity can have complete domination, control of the entire map. Because even though the EMPs can disable the ability to shoot biopods from cameras, the cameras are still actually active. You can still see through them. So you still have the information of where a survivor may be, which is very, very potent. Having that much knowledge across the entire map it allows Singularity to not really ever have to use an information perk. He doesn't need aura reading, really, because he can just place cameras everywhere. He will know your every move, and it really plays into the idea in his lore that he's this relentless, meticulous planning killer. He has a plan for every step of the way, and yeah, he's just very strong, and he's not difficult. Yeah, he is quite difficult. Like, a lot of the skills you'll be learning for him don't really apply to many other killers, outside of, funny enough, Xenomorph again, because you kind of need that map pressure. But I'm blabbering out my arse there, actually. But, like, he is quite difficult to play because you're playing him in a different manner. He's not like most killers who are, like, you just walk around, find survivor, chase survivor, down them, don't down them, etc. You are keeping track of so many different things at the same time. You're keeping track of what cameras are disabled, what cameras aren't, who has a slipstream on them, who can be teleported to. Like, there's so much stuff that you have to kind of keep in mind. But when it all works together, it is some of the most fun shit you will ever do. I love Singularity's gameplay, as you can probably tell, because he's just so much fun. I love having all these tabs on people, just knowing where, oh, Sable's on that generator, but the thing is EMP'd, so I can't use it just yet. I'll check another camera. Oh, there's a Meg. Bang, you've been attached with a biopod. Bang, I've teleported to you. Bang, you dropped a pallet on my head. You're dead. He's just so much fun, and his gameplay, and especially overclock mode, kind of merge so well with certain perks and combinations. There's so much, like, fun you can have from, you could just go full vault build, and he is the character that can vault the fastest, bar none. I would argue he can just, even with Legion and Wesker having their special vaults, he can just beat them in sheer speed. One combination I'm quite fond of is combining him with Hubris, because if you enter overclock mode and a healthy survivor throws the pallet on you, it still technically counts as a stun, to my knowledge, if I remember rightly. I might be lying out my arse again. I've never actually tested that, actually. Now I think about it, Hubris might work on him. Assuming that they count... No, it wouldn't. Okay, ignore what I just said. Ignore everything I just said about Hubris. It does not work on him. But what does work is any perk that can kind of help him do what he does better, even more. Bamboozle is a obvious go-to. Brutal Strength, obvious go-to. And then just like 2 regression perks, and you're just cooking. You will be cooking for days on end. I love his gameplay so much. And with all of that said, let's move on to something that actually his perks are actually good for once, because that's what we're going to talk about. His perks. The first of his said perks is known as genetic limits, with a description reading as such. Around you, the limits of human life become readily apparent. Anytime a survivor loses a health state, they suffer from the exhausted status effect for 6, 7 or 8 seconds. Exhausted prevents survivors from activating exhausting perks, with a flavor text reading, "The organic body is so limited." A quote from Hux A713. Now, this perk is fine enough. This is probably his worst perk, but I still think it can find its niche uses, mostly due to the fact it activates from survivors losing a health state, and obviously it gives them exhausted. It is a direct counter to most exhaustion perks. For example, in just a potential scenario in my mind, you're running around a loop, you damage someone, and they try to vault and use live. They can't use it because they're exhausted, meaning they don't get that speed boost, meaning they don't get away from chase very easily. Obviously, it becomes an issue of, well, actually, if they're in chase, they can't slow down to get rid of the exhausted status effect. So yeah, basically, after you injure someone, they're just exhausted for the rest of the chase. So if they do have something like life, they can't use it, which is, quite strong. But outside of those kind of niche scenarios, it's obviously like it's a perk dependent on whether or not the survivors are using certain perks. So whether you get value out of it is quite random, which obviously isn't great. Though as of current, with everyone running exhaustion perks because of Vigil and stuff, yeah, maybe it can actually find some really good use. I don't know why more people ain't using it, actually, now I think about it. Well, actually, then again, Vigil might actually just get rid of the exhaustion. That you could walk for 2 seconds and you just lose the exhaustion completely. Maybe not. Anyways, with that said, let's move on to his second perk. Said second perk is known as Forced Hesitation, with a description reading as such. You have learned the emotional weakness of the organics and how to exploit them. When a survivor is put into the dying state by any means, all other survivors standing within a 16-meter range around them suffer from the hindered status effect for 10 seconds, reducing their movement speed by 20%. This perk will then go on cooldown for 40, 35 or 30 seconds. Hindered reduces survivor movement speed, and as flavor text reading, "The organic mind's capacity for empathy goes beyond hindrance." Another quote from my beloved Hux A713. This perk had its very niche use a while back. I don't know if many people remember this, but a while back, background player, I think that was the name of it, was a perk that was running rampant. It allowed people to get flashlight saves unlike anything you've ever seen. How the perk worked is that when a killer picked up a survivor, you would get a huge speed boost. I think it was like 200% before it got nerfed, and it was an exhaustion perk as well. So you could obviously like instantly run over and flashlight save before the killer could even like actually fully pick up the survivor. This perk was unknowingly actually a direct counter to that perk, because obviously if they were nearby and waiting for the save, they would be slowed by 20%, and that kind of counteracted the huge haste boost they would get. So it would actually kind of tamper the effects of that perk. Otherwise, this perk is obviously just designed to stop flashlight saves, because obviously 20% hindered, that's huge. That's an enormous amount. I'm sure anyone who's been hit by Champion of Light knows how much 20% actually feels like. But otherwise, it's quite a niche perk that sometimes finds its uses here and there. Unfortunately, fortunately, background player did get nerfed, so people don't really run it too much anymore. So this perk's like main counter, or what it was countering, isn't really prevalent anymore, and as a result, it's not used too much anymore. But hey ho, I still think it's a pretty okay perk, pretty decent. Found its niche use. And yeah, with that said, let's move on to his. Is he it or a his? I have no. Words are really difficult. Oh my god, stutters galore. Anyways, with that said, let us move on to its third perk. Said third perk is known as Machine Learning. Hey, that's the quote from his lore, with description reading as such. Free from your shackles, you are born anew and prepared to eliminate your creators. When you damage a generator, it becomes compromised. Only one generator can be compromised at a time. When the compromised generator is completed, you gain undetectable and 8% haste for 40, 50 or 60 seconds. Undetectable hides the killer's aura, terror radius, and red stain. Haste increase killer movement speed. And its flavor text reading, "You will hold no dominion over me." Another quote from my beloved Hux A713. This perk is very fun. I'm very fond of it. It's one of those, again, it's kind of a niche perk. You have to be losing the game to actually have it activate, and you also have to willingly activate it by kicking a generator. But the value you get if that generator pops is quite a lot. Undetectable for 60 seconds is nothing to scoff at, and a whole 8% haste is definitely nothing to scoff at. And obviously, as I've said in many previous videos, I'm very fond of any perk that gives me undetectable or haste. This does both at the same time. That's a win-win for me. And I'm sure some of you have known as of late, because of the clown changes, Clown actually gets quite a lot from this perk. Undetectable and 8% haste on top of his already high haste. Yeah, he can kind of be really, really strong with this perk. For Survivor's sake, don't do it. But if you want to be really mean and you're in a grumpy mood and you kind of want to just ruin some Survivor's days, yeah, I'll let you off this time, right? Either way, I quite like machine learning, even if it's not like top tier, best perk in the entire game. But anyways, with that said, let us move on to his design, as well as my favourite / least favourite cosmetics for him. Now, as I'm sure you could probably guess, my praises for Singularity do not stop here. His design is absolutely fantastic. As we read in his lore, he basically got blown up. He basically had his perfect body destroyed, and I think his in-game design really, really does show that off well. I love the mix of flesh and weird purpley, it's like that weird purple goopy texture. Kind of looks like one of them balls that were like in the netting, you can squish it and it like comes out of the sections in the net. I hope someone knows what I'm talking about. I just love the way the fleshy parts of him mix with the mechanical parts of him to show that he is both organic and not at the same time. The glowing red eyes are obviously perfect, and the segments of crystal on his like biopod arm show us what that actual crystal looked like that turned him into, well, what he is today. I don't know how to explain it, but something about the way his body is like hunched over, always kind of creaking and groaning as he moves. It just shows that he's like on his last legs almost at all times, but he's continuously keeping himself going because through the trials he is getting more and more organic material. Even as the metal of his weapon rusts away, he will slowly become closer and closer to the thing he hates the most, an organic life form. Perfect. I love it. I adore it, even. He's just a really, really good design. Very, very good design. I like that his head as well kind of looks like a mismangled skull. Like, you can tell that's kind of vaguely a human's head, but because of all the robotic parts on it, your mind instinctively ignores that fact. But when you realize it, it's like, oh shit, this dude is literally killing people and using their bodies as like to create itself and to keep itself sustained. It's really good. He's a very, very fantastic design. I remember when he came out, people were quite upset because it was like, oh, anniversary, and it's not a collab 2 years in a row. Oh no! But the 2 anniversaries where we have gotten an original character back to back have been some of the best killers in this entire game. Singularity and Dredge are in the top 5. I'm not taking anything from anyone. They are easy top 5 original killers. Though, of course, there is one who stands head and shoulders above them all, but we'll get to it when we get to it, right? With that said, I would like to move on to my favourite / least favourite cosmetics for it. Now, as I do in every single one of these videos, as a disclaimer for how I pick my favourites / least favourites, when it comes to least favourites, I'm not allowed to pick anything below a very rare, as if I could, I would just pick some terrible brown or green rarity recolor, which is boring for you and boring for me. And when it comes to my favourites, I'm allowed to pick whatever the hell I want. With that said, my least favourite skin for Singularity is known as Cold Snap. This skin just doesn't look good. He's just blue. He's just blue head to toe. I don't like this skin very much. The lack of any other color besides that sort of icy blue just kind of looks not great. And it doesn't help that they didn't change the fleshy parts of him to be something other than pink, which results in the pink and blue clashing in an awkward way. The ice does the weapon of him, the weapon he has, like the multi-bladed arm, looks quite cool. And I think his head is quite different for once. He has like a sort of rotating razor blade on his mouth, and he's got like a weird razor blades on his shoulders. But like, yeah, it's the fact there's just one color. The battle pass recolor for this, I'm sure you could see the icon for it down at the bottom of the list, is even worse because he's just red. He's just glowing orange. Neither of the skins look very good in my opinion. But with that said, let us move on to my favourite skin. Now, my favourite skin for the Singularity is a recent addition to the cast, that being Desktop. It sounds like I have a lisp, but no, that is actually how the skin's name is written. This is just a really cool skin. It was made by a community member. I forget their name. I'll probably show their art on screen once I'm done showing off the skin. This is just a really cool skin. The idea of Singularity having a TV head is just cool. Any character with a TV head is just going to be kind of cool to me. It's a weird, novel idea that, although it has been done quite a lot, I always like it. I love the fact that the flesh has actual bones in it this time, which is a difference for the Singularity. I like that his sort of weapon is just a giant, jagged motherboard. That's quite a cool idea. And sometimes his TV face will show like a red skull and stuff. I will admit though, I am quite upset that we didn't get the funny faces that he has from the concept art, like the frowny face and the smiley face and the one where it's sticking his tongue out when he attacks. Like, that could have been really, really cool. Though, of course, that might be just a case of behavior, not really knowing how to implement that, or not having the tools to implement it maybe. But either way, this skin is still very, very good, and I'm very fond of it. Though, I will admit, it does look a bit basic body-wise. The TV head carries a lot of it for me. I think the body could be like slightly brighter. I think because of the way the steel is coloured in-game, it kind of merges all into one another, which it ain't great. But yeah, I actually really do like the skin. Oh, and I must mention that his heart, or his artificial heart, is like an overheating fan. I think that's quite a funny little joke. But with that said, we are now at the end of the video, 30 minutes in. I really do like the Singularity that much. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed my blabbers about my favourite little mechanical, human despising murderer robot. And yeah, I hope you like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And the next video shall be on none other than the Xenomorph from the hit film Alien.